Hello, fellow educators. I was called upon once again to do a high school devotional, so I thought I'd put this down. It's a little after 8 o'clock in the evening, and I think I have some thoughts that have been on my mind for a while, and I wanted to share them with you. I wrote them down here, so I'm going to be following along as I go. One of the things I like about Christmas, the time that we have, is it has a lot to do with light shining in darkness. I love to go travel around and see the Christmas lights and, see all this money that other people have to spend on decorating their houses and putting sound to it and everything. But one of the things that strikes me is the idea of light. It's a concept that starts with Genesis 1. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. And the first thing he says, let there be light. And as we talk about this time of year, it's the time of Christ's birth. And I've seen all kinds of Christmas cards that say that Jesus is the light of the world. He's the light of Christmas. And this light has come into darkness. And that actually comes from John chapter 1, verse 4 and 5. It says, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shone in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it or did not overcome it. In verse 9, it goes on to say, the true light, after it talks about John the Baptist being a type of light, it says that the true light, which gives light to everyone, is coming into the world. It's talking about Christ. Now, I know when I was growing up, we sang This Little Light of Mine, and then later on, after the worship wars took place, we had the chorus called Shine, Jesus, Shine. It's one of my favorite songs. I love singing that song. But I taught 5th grade history, math, science, and Bible for like 7 years. And I taught the students something that I had found out through the history and science that were in the textbooks and that were in my history books, is that light is very particular. And producing light has been something that man has been trying to do on his own. Actually, we know that Edison made, everybody say that Edison made the first light bulb. He actually didn't. In 1802, Humphrey Davy made the first electric light. It was called the electric arc lamp. It was unstable, didn't last long. 1840, a British scientist enclosed a coiled platform filament in a vacuum tube, and electric current passed through it and it lit up, but it didn't last. In 1850, an English physicist named Joseph Wilson Swan created a light bulb by enclosing the carbonized paper filaments inside of a vacuum glass, but he wasn't able to perfect it. In 1874, Canadian patent was filed in Toronto by Henry Woodward and a colleague, Matthew Evans, but their lamps were different sizes and shapes of carbon rods held between electrodes. It didn't really work. But they ended up selling their idea to a man by the name of Thomas Edison, Thomas Alva Edison, in 1879. By the end of 1879, Edison had perfected the light bulb and made it commercially viable. That is what Edison is actually credited with doing, making a commercially viable light bulb. But I said all that to say this. The kind of light bulb that Edison had perfected was one where he had carbon filaments wound around and electrified through some electrodes at the bottom of a glass tube. And it's when the energy of electricity had passed at such a rate that it made the filaments glow. I think that's the way it is with us as Christians. That the power of the Holy Spirit, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead, flows through us, and the light that people see is not just our light, it's not us, it's the light that Christ has placed within us, that we shine to other people. In Matthew 5:14, Jesus looked at his disciples and he said, you are the light of the world. He didn't say you reflect the light. It's not like we're the moon and Jesus is the sun. He said, you are the light of the world. Of course, he said about himself, he said, I am the light of the world. I wondered for the longest time how that fit. And the best I could figure is when we have Christ within us, he is the light within us. And since we are in him, and we have died to ourselves. It's no longer we who live, but Christ who lives in us. It is his light that's actually making us the light of the world. And I guess our job is really to shine that light. The best way I can illustrate this is that there was once a Sunday school class, young children and a teacher, and they decided to take an extra outing one day, and they went to this big, huge cathedral, and they had these stained glass windows all over the place. And one of the little boys asked the teacher, "Hey, what's that in the glass window up there? What's up there?" And the teacher said, "Well, that's the saints up there." A few months later, they were having a Sunday school class, and the teacher asked the class, "Well, does anybody know what a saint is?" And the boy raised his hand, so I could just hear Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter. Oh, me. And he said, "A saint is one that the sun shines through." I think that's us. And in this world, I don't know if you've been paying attention either, but there's been some stuff that's showing that this world's getting continually darker. And it needs even more and more the light that Christ has placed within us. Our students need that light. Some of our kids they're living in some pretty dark places. They need the light. They need the light of Jesus to shine through us. And all I have to do is basically get out of the way and let him shine. I don't know if this has actually helped you any, but it sure helps me to think that I don't have to produce the light. All I have to do is let him flow in and through me. And I can be the light of the world. Ever since this morning, Miss Geraldo was sharing that we're supposed to run a race. And we're getting to the end of the semester, and we're getting really tired. My wife and I right now are pretty exhausted. I don't know how she's holding on to that iPad, but I've had a song in my head ever since this morning, and I wanted to share it with you. It's one that I had heard a long time ago, and it's meant a lot to me about running the race. And it's a race that we don't run by ourselves. We run with the strength that Christ has given us. So let me transition over here as my wife backs up a little bit. And if you don't want to hear me sing, you can go ahead and turn it off here. But I think this is a pretty cool song. A lone runner ran down a dusty road. His body ached from the weight of his load. Dreams of the finish line seemed to explode, for the race was far too long. "I can run no more," he said with a cry. But just at that moment a man ran by. He matched the pace of the runner's stride and began to sing this song. "Run, keep on running, let's finish the race. Fix your eyes on me and then I'll set the pace. Cast off anything that will hinder you. Run, for your race is almost through." With those words the man pulled ahead. The runner thought of the words he'd said, but soon his gaze was drawn instead to the body of the man. His feet were maimed from an awful blow. His hands were marred from a wound long ago. And with each stride the pain would show, but the man just sang this song. "Run, keep on running, let's finish the race. Fix your eyes on me and then I'll set the pace. Cast off anything that will hinder you. Run, for your race is almost through." Jesus ran, so we follow him. We compete as those who know we'll win. The prize that awaits God's champions, the faithful who endure. And with each mile he's by our side. And those who come before look on and cry. We'll end our course and come inside to join the runner's song. "Run, keep on running, you'll finish the race. Fix your eyes They topped a hill, and there below stood a Colosseum grand, and the greatest runners of all time were seated in the stands. As they entered in, the crowd began to urge them round the field. In the song they sang,